I'd like to draw your attention to the previous presentation, which was delivered by our colleague André. Take this presentation, translate it into Russian and Ukrainian. If you don't do it the way he showed you, you will have the result which I show you now. So that is the only way out for you. That is a very short scheme as to what you need to do in order to make site supervision really work. It's our major problem now how because we more or less know how to make you work, but we don't yet know how to make site supervision work, and we know how to make a contractor work. But with site supervision, that is still at the stage of development. So you are more interested in introducing those changes into the contract with site supervision, because just to explain site supervisors that you will be hired and you will have to work and not just to drink tea, which is a non-standard function of site supervision, is very difficult. So, site supervision is regulated by the same document as design supervision, and you can also have a look at this resolution consisting of several pages only. And here are some quotations from that document, but translated into Russian for you to understand that it was not me who devised these things. What are the objectives of site supervision? Provision of construction project implementation within the deadline set and within the volume, the scope set. The next task is ensuring high quality of construction, which means that site supervision is responsible to you for the deadlines, for the scope, and for the quality of construction. Also, the third item is ensuring application of construction materials indicated in the design documents. What I showed you in the table, that site supervision should control compliance of the materials used to the materials indicated in the design documents. And it is him who should make the task of the designer to introduce all the necessary changes into his documents. And the fourth item is ensuring project implementation with the due account of the real bills of quantity of the construction cost. Uh, they are they are trying to say that site supervision does not have to deal with this. But what does it really mean? This last item. That is keeping the balance of construction on a regular basis. Some construction works are being performed on a daily, on a weekly basis, and there constantly appear some additional supplementary works and some works which have to be deducted. For example, you had to insulate 1,100 square meters, but when you did the insulation, it appeared 1,096, which means that you have already saved 4 square meters, and site supervision should record the actual scope of works, not to let the contractor declare the scope which is larger than the real scope of works, and jointly with the contractor to ensure the balance of the construction, because this 4 square meters, that is already some money which would compensate for some costs for additional works in case they appear. In Ukraine, we also have legislation articles dedicated to this point, and I will tell you more about that. So these are the 4 basic objectives of site supervision, and nobody is going to perform these 4 functions. You cannot perform these functions because you don't have the necessary experience and knowledge and competences. The contractor will not do it because he is interested in taking as much money from you as only possible. Therefore, the task of the site supervision is to ensure keeping to the deadlines, to the quality, to the scope, and to real cost of construction. Here are some more quotations from the document. What should technical supervisor do on the site? Check availability of documents confirming high quality characteristics of different structures and articles, which is the input control of the quality of materials, and they have to record it in the logs and in the executive documents. That is the process to be ensured by technical supervisor. The next point is checking correspondence of the construction and assembling works done to the designed solutions, to the construction norms and rules. So site supervision is checking compliance not only with the design documents but with the rules and norms, because in the design something may be wrong, and then the site supervision should tell the contractor, please do it the way it is written here, and the designer then needs to introduce changes because in his design documents something is wrong and does not correspond to legislation. That is all the function of technical of site supervision. When we come to the site with quality control and you ask why they are doing it that way, the contractor will tell, okay, that's what's written in the design. So it is the task of the site supervisor to uh, ensure compliance with legislation. And if this function is not performed by site supervision, there will be no compliance with legislation, and then there will be problems. Uh, Either you will have to be responsible for that, or, well, we are trying to help with our regular visits to check all those items, but site supervision should be staying on the site all the time. And the next point is correspondence of the checking the correspondence of the scope and quality of performed construction and assembling works to the design and estimate documents. Like what I have already mentioned, how much material has been spent, and that is kind of a sheet of the materials used. The constructor will not do this for him. For example, I participated mostly in the project in Slavutic in one of the schools, and over the period of about 9 months, the contractor kept saying that I need 2 million, I need 500,000 for additional works. And when this check was made, and this check was actually done on a regular basis because site supervision were there on a daily basis. But when the final check was made, it appeared that even with the money they asked for additional works, they within this money they did not even manage to um, do the real scope of works, which means that really they had some additional works. Maybe Dmitry will tell about this within the quality control issue. But it appeared that there were some serious problems with that. And what I've already told you, that we had to level the walls because they were not smooth, and so the contractor even did not manage to perform all the main works within this amount of money. So if site supervision does work on a daily basis, then you will have substantial problems. And this is the money which was aimed at other things, could be could be used for other things like replacement of lamps or some other things. And that is a very important function which could be performed only by a competent specialist who knows everything about design and estimates and the norms and the standards. And again, this I'm claiming that this is written in the document I'm quoting, and it was not me who invented this. The next one is examination together with the contractor of the works performed, including hidden, concealed works and construction elements. It's written that site supervision together with the constructor should perform this examination, which means that site supervision is to ensure quality. Not technical specialists of the project team, which comes once a month, but site supervision. Please just include quotations from the documents, probably even with the references, into your contract with a site supervisor. The next point is involvement in the inspection held by the state supervision authorities and architectural and construction control bodies. I mean that site supervisor should be involved in the checks conducted by state bodies and give answers to questions, provide some clarifications, and liquidate deficiencies. Now, some practical things I will tell you. Just a little bit, because Dmitry will tell you later about quality control, and these are interrelated issues. So, in a school which was insulated at the money at the expense of ComDAP, um, was the following. We had the following situation: the windows were installed. Site supervision was absolutely satisfied with this. The project team was satisfied, and only I had some remarks. What kind of remarks? These bars were up to 18 centimeters in height, and the windows were installed, so to say, like on foam. And while installing them according to the state standards, it was not allowed to use combustible materials. And when the works were about to be finished during the installation of the windows, before acceptance, before final acceptance, because you know that site supervision says that the works have been accepted, the film should be removed, because later you will not manage to remove it. The glue will be somehow become adhesive, and well, you may try to, but it's sometimes more easier to reinstall the window than to remove this tape, remove this film. Site supervision didn't have any remarks to these works, and you know, I showed you some quotations from the legislation, and none of these functions was performed by site supervision. Quality control, design compliance, nothing. Uh, After our examination, the bars were removed, the protective film was removed, and there was also the cement solution placed there. So all the deficiencies were removed, but were it not for the technical experts of the support team, so it seemed that everything was all right. And another point is that you can see the socle, the plinth, and here is their picture made from above. It was actually, you can see the damages there. We came to the site, again, no remarks on behalf of site supervision. As far as socle is concerned, it should be reinforced by experience. And everything was closed there on dowels and kind of porous membrane. I wouldn't even have a suspicion that something was wrong there until we removed this dowel pin and saw that there was just foam plaster there inside, which was not glued to by anything. So, you know, there was not a single element which was supposed to be there, either foam plaster or porous membrane or bubbled membrane. So, but everybody seemed to be satisfied with all that. Both the project team and the site supervision, which means that site supervision did not perform its function because it had to record deficiencies and a violation of legislation, because combustible materials could not be used for insulation of socle in educational institutions in Ukraine in particular. By the way, the situation the same is in Belarus. Here is the next example. Informative picture, I would say. So here you have the connector which goes to the construction, and a large construction site, the whole school, just consumes energy from here, from one single outlet. And nobody pays for electricity, nobody pays for water as well. And this is really a violation of the current legislation. And also you will have some problems with inspection, because the inspection will see that definitely in the design and estimate documents there is some money which was supposed to be reimbursed for this for water and for electricity, and the contractor was supposed to get the money from the customer and to give it to the school to compensate for these costs. But that was not done, and site supervision showed no remarks, voiced no remarks in relation to this. This is not nonsense. This is what we see in 100%, not 99, but 100% of our site visits in Ukraine. And that's what I told you about the type. Remember adhesive type. And here you have the window installed, and the reveal is closed, and the film is applied. And in the design, it's written film. It's not indicated. Is it hydro insulation, vapor insulation? No grade, no mark is indicated, and therefore the contractor brought really the film. It's written on the box that it's film, and it's well everything corresponds to design, and this film is glued there. Site supervision is happy about that. The project team is happy about that. Also, in some places, since this film is rather broad, and they spent quite. I've already mentioned that they provided some longitudinal section in order to save more of this film and to apply it in a greater number of places, which means that they had to work quite a lot to achieve this saving of money. We we pay such visits quite often, and um, if we came there only once, we would never have seen this. And the school would get this sort of film on the windows, which would not perform its function, but would just fall down with time, because definitely plaster could not be glued to this film, and it would fall away. Here is a photo from another site with the glued insulator, and according to the technological map that was cerused, and along the perimeter it should be 100% adjacency, but on the surface it should be 75%. But there was a gap between the wall and the insulator, and I actually could put my hand there. So it was about 3 centimeters, which means that they did not comply with the technique of applying this material, and everything was assembled in the wrong way. And that's why it, of course, always falls away. Another facility is kindergarten, and the windows were just lying there, scattered around the site, and their platform, the ground was not fenced. Site supervision performed its work, and it didn't have any remarks for some reason. And that is, by the way, there not the quality control side, but it's my visit as the author of the project for design project, because within ComDAP I learned how to do quality control, and I perform the function of photo recording and give this and submit this document. But so far I go by my own car, and I'm still alive. But I'm often blamed that I'm doing the wrong things, and I'm performing not my function now. And that's really not my function. It's not written that I can perform it. But you know, that's just in brief, and Dmitry will show you more pictures from site visits. I just didn't want to place too many pictures and photographs because we would otherwise have an overlap. But all the violations Metro will be talking about during quality control are easily removable, in particular in the early phase. And I gave you an example from Zhovkva with the installation of the first window. But when the contractor was told how to install the first window in a correct way, the contractor understood that it's much easier for him to, and much cheaper for him to do it correctly right from the first time. And this concerns not just installation of the window, but any application of any material onto the building. And then it's much easier to work further on. But with this in view, you need to have a competent, qualified site supervisor, and then you will not have problematic situations, and you will not see photographs which I have shown you. These are all quotations from the legislation. Please, I would advise you to look through them once again and to tell your site supervision that anyway you will have to perform these functions, because we will demand that from you. And the consultants, the advisors will keep coming and paying site visits, and include as many of these quotations as possible and requirements as many as possible into the um, contract, and also take Andres' presentation, translate it, include it into the contract, and you will have two basic things. Either the site supervision will say that okay, I won't deal with this contract, or he will perform the work with high quality. But if you keep silence, the site supervision will not understand that he will not just have to drink coffee, but he will have to perform some function. Because now the common situation in the understanding of the site supervisor is that he will just have to drink coffee. At the very beginning, there were some things connected with their film close the window. So do you mean that you have to remove it right after installation or after the reviews are made? Well, legally you cannot do it right away, but here the responsibility is, since we always do it like that, that is the responsibility of the main workman, master of this project on the site, because who's to blame if then later the film cannot be removed? Well, if the period is 2 months, I do agree, but if the period is 2 months, 2 weeks, well, it's dubious. From my practice, I can tell you that I declare it as a remark only if the review has already been made, but the film has not been removed as yet. Only in this case, when the reviews have already been painted, but the film has not been removed. And there are quite a lot of such facilities. Concerning the film, I will tell about my own experience. Just recently, I moved into a newly built apartment, and the developer removed these films only on the windows which cannot be opened, but on the ones which are opened, the film is still there. And just imagine, the building was built in the beginning of 2018. The windows were there back in 2017, which means that these windows shutters which are to be opened stayed in such a condition with 2 year for 2 years almost. So you can only imagine what kind of chemical agents are used to somehow remove this film. And could I have a question concerning the same slide? The impression is that the windows were installed um, in terms of technical solutions in a very strange way. The point is that we have some rules for insulation of windows, and unfortunately, these rules are already obsolete and outdated. But according to the legislation, our designers always have to apply these regulations because they still exist. So, what are the modern solutions which you use in your documents as requirements for window replacement, taking into account the fact that the building will further on be insulated? Well, I do understand what you're talking about, and really there are some aspects which have to be taken into account. But if you need the explanation, maybe that could be discussed during the coffee breaks or during dinner. If you install windows in this way and the facade is not insulated, you cannot do it this way because you will get the problem. You need to somehow deal with the foam, then it will be destroyed due to ultraviolet rays if you don't do anything with it. And even if you do something with the foam, still the water in liters will be collected inside. Water will go through the windows into the premises of the school. And you must understand that you can do it in this way only if you do the installation works also in the summer period. Well, the thing that the reveal is frozen, well, that is another aspect. As far as Ukrainian legislation is concerned, it's even written in the legislation and in ComDAP that there are two types of window installation. The first one has some advantages. because the window is mounted at the same level as the facade, and when the insulator is installed, it somehow goes half of the frame to the level of half of the frame, and we don't have the reveal. So that is minus the work with the reveal insulation, and through their thermal device, you actually will not see this change through this thermal device. And here is the disadvantage.
When you enter the site, you will see deep reveal. You will see the hole up to 12 centimeters, and definitely you should think how to fill in that hole. Also, you have the internal window sill. There is a hole behind it, and you have either to replace it or to do something about it. So we talk about additional works, but they are not expensive because you do not have external reveal. If we have the windows inside, you have to insulate the external reveals, and there are lots of difficulties here. For example, if the window is just a quarter, you can use 10 or 20 millimeters of insulator. When Norbert requires 30, I have to do something about the plate or above in order to have these 30 millimeters. According to Ukrainian legislation, these additional works equal the price of the window installation. So it's really a complicated work if you have to cut something. So the second variant means more advantages in comparison with the first one. For example, in the first variant, we have 15 centimeters of insulator at the facade, and in the second case you will have probably 5 or probably 2 or 3, or even you won't have anything. So from the viewpoint of our heat losses, it is better. I'm the author of the some designs. Every year I have 20 or 30 projects on thermal refurbishment, and for the recent 5 years, just quarter for the windows, or probably very small amount of projects. We all the time replace them. The contractors, the clients, professional clients, I'm talking about project teams management, for example, in Kiev, that are responsible for repairs of all the kindergartens and schools. They already see efficiency of this technical solution and all the time state that if you have a chance to replace the windows, let's do it. Let's do the first variant. There are more pluses, but for the winter you cannot have it like that. Please, the mic. From the technical point of view, it is really easier. From the aesthetic point of view, I like this variant better. In my own house, I put the windows like that. When you have a thick main wall, for example, there was an existing reveal and then we have a hole. So we just make a deviation and we are then approach the window installation, and it looks really nice. But these are details. If you want, I may show them later. I personally prefer the first variant when we have our, the window like that. We were trying to prepare technical design when we have insulated 20 centimeters or 25 centimeters, and but fitting elements are very expensive. Unfortunately, there is no mic. Please ask the speaker to use the mic. Now we, for example, plan to insulate the building of the Ministry of Regional Development. The insulator is 10 millimeters and we want to add 10 more, and so far we calculated the budget and they are still thinking. So there is this practice. I saw photos from European sites. So far we didn't have it in Ukrainian, but if we already have some equipment for it, it means probably we have some private works.